So can I welcome you to the meeting? I'll be chairing the meeting this morning as our chairman is away at the moment. So thank you for being here. Do we have apologies?
Thank you, Chair. I've received apologies from Paul Snape, Mark Winnington and Melanie Stokes.
Thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest? No. The minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of November, have we all seen, read and agreed them? Is everyone happy with the minutes? Can I sign them as a true and correct record? Ian, I think you were at that meeting. Are you content with the minutes? You happy? Fine. Okay. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Stafford 14 to 19 Partnership Business Plan Update.
Thank you, Chair. That's me.
Thank you.
By way of a bit of background, at the June 2018 committee meeting, trustees approved in principle that Stafford 14 to 19 Partnership be supported by Stafford Education Centre Charity with financial contributions on a rolling 5-year basis, subject to the production of a business plan and its approval by the trustees. I work with the partnership each year to ensure that the business plan and in particular the annual operational plan within it is reviewed and updated, and this includes a review of the finances and updated details of the financial contribution requests being made. The paper submitted to the committee today makes the following recommendations: to review and approve the updated business plan, to consider for approval the funding request for the 22-23 and 23-24 academic years, and to delegate approval for the Assistant Director for Skills and Employability to be authorised to approve and release the funds subject to successful delivery of the 22-23 business plan. The partnership this year has made an amendment to the layout of the business plan by also including a section at page 18 which shows their progress against the current academic year's operational plan, as well as showing their plan for the forthcoming year. Following my introduction, Anne Kingman, head teacher of Western Road Academy and the current partnership chair, can provide trustees with a brief update of the partnership achievements and progress this year. In respect of the funding requests, at the committee meeting on the 15th of June 2021, an estimated request of £176,319 was approved in principle. The updated request now being made for the 22-23 academic year is reduced to £149,320. This is due to savings being made during the current academic year spending, and so this can be carried forward to support the forthcoming year. The request is made up of 3 elements: just over £21,000 to enable centrally delivered teaching of minority subjects that students across the partnership schools would not otherwise have access to. £40,000 to enable the provision of activities to engage those at risk of NEET in Key Stage 4 and to further challenge and broaden the horizons of those who are gifted and talented. And lastly, £88,071 for the central partnership team and resources. This enables the collaborative delivery across all the member schools and the implementation of the actions identified in the operational plan. Are there any questions for myself before I hand over to Anne to give an update?
Okay, thank you very much. Obviously, I'm Anne Kingman, head teacher of the Western Road Academy and also chair of the Partnership Executive Group. This year has been quite a challenge for students, parents and staff within the partnership. All partners at some point have experienced COVID outbreaks within their centres in the first half of the academic year, meaning that at various times we were still all experiencing restrictions. Despite this though, another challenges presented as a result of the pandemic, such as the cost of living crisis and the increase in social, mental and health needs within our schools. The partnership has continued to flourish. In September 2021, we saw an increase in the number of students attending Russell Group universities. 52% of our students across the Stafford Partnership went on to study at Russell Group universities, including Oxbridge. This cohort were the first to benefit from some of the Raising Aspiration Fund. We've continued to reduce our expenditure within the Partnership Office without impacting on the quality of provision. For example, we have made some savings with the broadband provider and other expenditure. We've been working hard to raise the profile of the partnership, again through more targeted support for students. All schools have adapted their recruitment methods in response to student feedback. Applications, both internal and external, within the partnership have increased this year. Our transition programme from Key Stage 4 to Key Stage 5 has been strengthened across the partnership to be inclusive to all courses that we offer. A new working party across all schools has been set up to focus on the student experience, with early indications that schools are benefiting from the sharing of ideas. This includes developing a super curriculum and other enrichment activities. The super curriculum will extend students' learning beyond the curriculum and offer a range of extra learning activities that students will be able to complete independently. We have offered new courses including D&T and Level 3 BTEC in IT. However, we are working to develop more than just the academic side within all of our schools in the future, taking responsibility in each school for a different area that is of interest to students, such as medicine or engineering. A student forum has been established with representatives from all of the schools, and they are contributing to the sixth form life. COVID restrictions have prevented some face-to-face collaboration this year, but this is an area that we want to develop now. Our quality assurance systems continue to evolve in line with best practices, and we have arrangements for all groups of teachers from all schools to meet this term. Many activities and opportunities have arisen as a result of the Raising Aspirations funding for our gifted and talented and neat students within our schools, including educational visits and resources. Student and staff feedback has been very positive about these experiences, and we are starting to see more students, as I've said, move on to Russell Group universities. NEET figures have also decreased in all of our schools. Careers links continue to evolve and links to the local businesses. New courses have been introduced and action taken to increase the numbers on the partnership courses. As a consequence, applications have increased. All partners have now got access to Uniflog, an online platform which allows students to explore different university courses and apprenticeships, and it has enhanced the information, advice and guidance in all years and the UCAS application process. This year, we have broken the funding down into the different areas where we require it for the partnership to function effectively. There is no doubt that this funding is needed and will continue to provide effective collaboration and delivery of high quality courses for students of Stafford, with hopefully successful outcomes for them all. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just, on a more general point, because I think that we've all gone through the nightmare of COVID and the impact that's had on us. How do you feel from a general educational point of view, education is now recovering from the loss of the opportunity for children to be actually attending school?
Yeah, obviously we have seen an increase in all of our schools with particularly social mental health needs. A lot more students are anxious. Anxiety has played a huge part in that we've seen with students being able to cope. Certainly from my point of view, in my school, we've employed a counsellor full-time and things like that we didn't have before to be able to address the needs of some of those students. But that said, the students generally in the sixth form have been quite resilient. They worked hard during lockdown and on teams. Certainly in my school, we didn't see a significant amount of loss of learning there because they're independent learners. They carried on working within the sixth form, and therefore we're still hoping for good exam results this year.
That's super. I think that when we look at the chaos that we've gone through as a result of chaos, to see us coming back to some level of normality and maintaining standards, I think, is really very important, and I commend the work that you're doing for that. Ian, any comment that you wish to make?
No, I just think it was a good report. Sorry. I think it was a very good report. I know from my own village the problems schools have. So much time off with COVID, and then it becomes a habit, so they don't want to go back, the younger ones. Anyway, I think that's been solved quite well in our area, and you seem to have solved the problem. But these days, I mean, it always was, but an education is so important these coming days. I mean, I'm 85, so I've seen a lot of things, but I can't imagine what the hell's coming. So the more we can teach our kids to cope with what's coming up and give them the intelligence to make a good living, I think it's a sterling job, and I'm all for it. So I'm on your side.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Hello, Chairman. I didn't know you were here. You slipped in quietly.
Still fight.
Right, good morning to everyone. And apologies for being a bit late. I was stuck on another call. I didn't think it was the thing to come in here and talk. I missed the first part of your presentation. I'm really interested in getting back to normal. We came through town. My mother's in hospital. We came through town yesterday at 3:30. Blessed Bills had just rolled out, and they were coming out of Western Road as well. The kids looked really happy. Probably happy to be out of school, but happy anyway. And it was nice to see that there was sort of, rather than just one person, that there was a horde of kids basically. And within this getting back to normal thing, I'd like to see what's classed slightly as a new normal. And my slight beef with the education system, not so much at your level, but when you start to get to the higher education level, is that I feel that some universities and courses have lost their way. And over the next 5-10 years, we really need high-skilled, competent workforce, not a workforce that's good at, I don't know, counting how much pollen's in the air, which is important, but actually making things, and we've got some big employers in Staffordshire and the surrounding areas, JCB and all of that. And I've increasingly come to the conclusion that the universities and some of the higher education facilities, it's in their benefit to get as many kids in as possible to get the £9,000 a year, whatever it is. I've got personal experience of a family member and it's a girl that's gone into engineering on a higher level, and in all fairness to her, worked really hard, starts at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning, finishes at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and then does the uni work as well as that. And she's going to profit from it because she's done it. Now, when she's finished, she'll have no borrowings and a good job and a good education. And in the long way around, what I'm trying to get to is are you now considering higher education in terms of these vocational courses? And indeed, having courses from A-level or up to A-level that actually give students the chance to find out what the work environment's like, because that's something that, I'm a farmer, and a lot of the youngsters now don't know about work. If you said get up at 6 o'clock, they go, well, that's tea time. So that's a concern for me, and I think basically we've got to take a little bit of a different look at how we do things. And the other final point is, do you have a careers officer that travels around the area and tells people what the real jobs are out there, rather than everyone wants to be a manager, and we need some people who are actually going to create as well. So sorry for that big long ramble, but it's something that I feel really strongly about, that we've got to change the way we look at education and work.
So yeah, in answer to your first point, obviously we're always exploring new courses. We're always prepared to offer new courses, and it obviously depends on what the student need is as well. There's no point us offering a course if there's no interest in that course. Certainly we've introduced new courses, and we've introduced new courses lower down within the schools as well. We've introduced engineering this year for the first time at GCSE level, so we're hoping that in a couple of years that will come to fruition, and there may be a pathway that we can explore for some of those students within the sixth form. In terms of visits to university and links with university, yes, we do link closely with lots of universities. There's lots of trips out. They've been limited, obviously, because of the COVID situation, but this year we have seen more trips go out and visit. We've been to Birmingham, we've been to the Careers Fair down in Birmingham. We've taken about 3 coachloads of students down to that. We've been to Oxbridge universities, been to Manchester University, the medics have all been there. So those opportunities are now starting to come again where people can visit. But it's not just that as well, it's about getting people into our schools as well. And I don't know if you missed the presentation where we're saying we're trying to have each of our centres responsible for, say, medics or accounting or engineering or whatever the interest is of the students, so that within our centres all those people can come together and we can find opportunities for them to explore those professions if that's what they're interested in going into. All schools do have a careers lead. We link closely with Careers Ready, who provide all sorts of external resources. We've had students going out to look at local workplaces recently, different sort of centres that deal with technology and so on, if that's the areas they're interested in. So yes, very much so. It is an area that we definitely need to develop over the coming years now we've got out of the COVID situation.
That's really good news. Thank you for that. I personally would like sort of a bit of feedback. Whether is this the forum that will be fed back into, or how it's progressing in under 6 months' time or so? How do you tell us as councillors what you're doing? Because this is just a small. Well, there's only 3 or 4 of us here anyway. So.
We do have our own governance forum, so we've got a governance forum that oversees everything that we do, so they meet once a term. Obviously the finance and everything goes through that, and the updates on where we are with the business plan. Nothing comes here though until the next year.
Yeah, no, so that wasn't the work that you're doing, which sounds getting back on track in terms of the youngsters going out to look at workplaces and the cluster. I like the cluster idea. If you want to be a medic, this is the sort of opportunities.
Yeah.
That's the first I've heard of this, and I think that's brilliant. But where do you report to?
It's reported in our business plan. So each year, against our targets, we've got in here our operational business plan for last year with what we've achieved, and then we've got our operational plan for the coming year, and obviously all that's cited in there as well as to what we're hoping to achieve. And next year we'll report back as to how successful that's been.
If you wanted to have information, information that's updated at some other point, we can arrange for something if that's what we'd like.
Could I ask, or is it possible for this feedback to go to one of the scrutiny, to the Prosperous or somewhere? Because I think this is really important and quite useful.
I was going down the same line as you, Mark, and my feeling was that we've got a very solid business plan that we've had put to us today. But in the current climate, I think that we as the Charities and Trusts Committee would like to know that they're able to work to that business plan, and that if you found that you were getting into trouble on things that were happening, that we as the Charities Committee were able to look at that. I don't know whether we'd be in a position to modify what we were doing, or I'm not even throwing out a hope that we could do, but I think that we ought to know if you were getting into trouble on working to the business plan. It would be very, very sound from our point of view to know that was happening and to see what could be done. So I hope that as a committee we're not seen as a closed door. Does that help you, Mark? I think it should be this committee.
Well, I don't care which committee it is or if it's several committees.
Well, sorry, I'm only simply being logical from the point of view that we are approving the business plan, we're financing it.
Yes.
If there's a problem with it, we ought to know about it.
I wasn't really referring to the business plan. I was more referring to the change in direction. Because 3 years ago, pre-COVID, it was almost like a machine that was turning out youngsters to go to university now, and that was just how it felt to me, and experiencing it with my brood, because it was almost like you got to get a degree, end of story. And now, on what you've just said, that's the direction we should be going in, which is you can get a degree, or you can go into vocational education. And what the ultimate aim is to get a job and be prosperous yourself. And that's a lot different story than it was 4 or 5 years ago, which would be nice to get that to more of the education-based committees, is really what I meant, Chair. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Chair. Just moving aside from it, I notice on the report that looking forward to 23-24, it says this level of money you put in, sorry, I'm talking about page 10 at the bottom. You will be requiring around about 178,261. This level is required to continue to enable the Central Partnership courses to run due to lower pupil numbers. The continued delivery of a gifted and talented programme and 14 to 16-year-old alternative provision and ongoing costs of the central management. Are you struggling to get pupils, and can I also link that to the question, are you having any of these refugee children at school, and how are you coping?
In answer to your first question, this refers to just the partnership courses where numbers have been low. So we've got criminology, we've got law, we've got health and social care that are centralised courses that are run out of Stafford Manor as part of the partnership. So the funding goes towards contributing towards those. The last couple of years they have seen low numbers, but if you look in the business plan, it does refer to the fact that we have marketed those courses a lot harder, and we're hoping that we will see higher numbers on those this year. Within the partnership. So it refers to those minority subjects that that are only taught once within all of our schools, if that makes sense. In terms of refugees and Ukrainians, yes, our schools are starting to see Ukrainian refugees come into them. At the moment, I'm in the position where we're probably going to take one, but that's our first one. But we've all been approached. I think Blessed Bills has got the most at the moment out of all of us.
Is there a problem with language?
Well, we don't know yet because we haven't got any, but we take students anyway where English is an additional language into all of our schools anyway. So we make allowances for that, and we provide, these days you can get quite sophisticated things that help them with their studies in terms of translation.
Good, thank you.
Do you have,
Yeah, just to come on to your point, just a comment really. So it's a focus of the government nationally to look at T levels, the technical levels, for that exact reason, to try and get people to have the skills for the workforce, not just a degree that then doesn't then feed into the workforce. So that is a focus nationally already. T levels, I think they're called, aren't they? Technical levels. That's the next thing, isn't it? They're looking at for that reason, right, to cover your point.
Yeah, and we have got providers within Staffordshire who are commencing those. They're being staged start with different subject areas over a period of time. But yeah, we have got a number in Staffordshire that are delivering those.
And what are the areas, what are the subjects in Staffordshire then for that? Are they linked to Staffordshire in itself, or is it mandated?
Well, there's a national set of T-levels, and to start delivery of T-levels, the providers initially had to be rated as good or outstanding with Ofsted, so that was for the initial tranche. You're going to test my memory now, I'm afraid. I'm not the lead for T-levels on the team, but I know that we've got education and childcare is definitely being delivered at Newcastle and Stafford Colleges Group, and also at Leek College, I believe. And I think the first ones that were delivered were based around computer's probably not the correct terminology, but it's IT-based ones. So they were phased in at certain stages. I can't remember the actual which ones were first, if you get my drift, in the phased approach. But I can provide that separately if you're interested.
Thank you.
No, well, we're asked to approve the report and the spending that we've got in it. That's 3 items of expenditure. Are we all in agreement with the report? Fine. Thank you very much. That's accepted. Thank you very much for your report and for your attendance. You're most welcome to stay if you wish to, or if you wish to escape, now's a good time to do it. Can we now move on to the next item, the Nicholson Institute at Leek and Staffordshire Moorlands?
That's me, Chair.
Thank you.
Good morning, councillors. I'm Gail Edwards. I'm Strategic Delivery Manager for Newcastle and Staffordshire Moorlands. The report that you've got before you, it relates to the Nicholson Institute, which is in the centre of the market town of Leek in Staffordshire Moorlands. And there are 2 elements to the report. The first one is to inform members of a Levelling Up Fund bid that's being submitted by Staffordshire Moorlands District Council, which will include the Nicholson Institute. And the second element is to ask the committee to support an approach to the Charity Commission to slightly amend the trust deeds. So just some background on the Nicholson Institute. It was built in the 19th century and it was built as a art gallery, museum and library provision for the people of Leek. It was bequeathed to the people of Leek by the Nicholson family in the 1920s, and after the 1974 local government reorganisation, it became a property that was in trust to the county council. Currently, the property is split between 3 organisations in terms of its usage, and the County Council runs its Leek Town Library from the premise, and we are the largest user of the Nicholson Institute. The District Council runs Arts, Gallery and Museum on the upper floor of the Institute, and the lower ground floor is currently not used, but it is under the remit of Leek and Buxton College to deliver an art school there. They actually rebuilt their own art school, and those rooms, which are really quite substantial, aren't used because of the state that they're currently in. There's issues with the floors, etc. The Levelling Up Fund bid from Staffordshire Moorlands District Council has got quite a strong cultural theme to it, and it includes a number of other projects for the town, but they've included the Nicholson Institute, which I think is a really positive opportunity for the council. It's a real, there's real potential for us not only to get some of the maintenance backlog completed, but also to actually revamp the entire building and bring it back into full use, including the art school rooms that I've mentioned. The bid goes in on the 6th of July, and it will be for around £4.3 million to actually do all of that work, and also to revamp the outside of the building, to clean it up. It has suffered in terms of pollution from both the mills originally and also from its location on quite a major road. So that's a real opportunity to really reinvest in that property for the future and for future generations. So the committee are asked to acknowledge the fact that it will be part of that bid, and it is generally a good news bid, but we are really conscious of checking, for example, that there aren't clawback provisions within the Levelling Up Fund that we'd need to be mindful of. So we are taking quite a prudent approach to our involvement in that bid. In terms of the request to the committee to look at agreeing for an approach to the Charity Commission to slightly alter the deeds, what we're keen to do is make sure that the Nicholson Institute generates some revenue income into the future to help maintain it for future generations. The building potentially has a real opportunity in terms of our ability to hold events, particularly if the art rooms are revamped and restored. The art rooms link directly onto a walled garden, and so it makes for a really attractive venue and a really attractive opportunity. So what we're keen to do is look at holding a range of events and also to bring in our registrar's service from the County Council to both have an office within the Nicholson Institute, which would be next to our library provision, but also to hold civil wedding ceremonies there. Currently, the wedding ceremony that we provide in Staffordshire Moorlands is in a room called the Dove Room in the District Council office. To say it's functional would be an understatement. It's a very bland room, and it's perhaps unsurprising that we only really do about one wedding a month in Staffordshire Moorlands. In terms of service to the Moorlands, it's also really not what we'd want it to be. We find that people go over to Newcastle and Castle House to have their ceremonies, which is at least an hour from the Moorlands, from Leek. So this is a real opportunity for us to not only have a revamped Nicholson Institute, but to also look at those revenue streams that are appropriate in terms of usage. So, for example, the weddings wouldn't take place when we'd have the core services being delivered. And in terms of events, making sure that they're appropriately themed and that they are acceptable, obviously, to trustees and to our wider members. So the recommendation is for you to support our approach to the Charities Commission to change the trust deeds, but only slightly. So the core operation is still the same. It will provide a library, an art gallery, a museum, but we would be able to actually look at generating some revenue to reinvest into the Nicholson through appropriate events and also through the wedding ceremonies. I'm happy to take any questions.
Can I just declare an interest? I think I better declare an interest. I'm a district councillor on the Staffordshire Moorlands committee. I have nothing to do with the Nicholson side of it at all, so, but interested, obviously.
Right. Morning. How are you? Good, good. This scares me, not because of this project in particular, but because of similar projects around the county, Shire Hall being one of them. Now, if you take the example of the Shire Hall has been kept in good fettle. The county's invested a lot of money making sure it was waterproof, watertight and everything else. And now we've come to the point where part of the Shire Hall is just about to be opened for business enterprise centres. It doesn't answer the question for the rest of the Shire Hall, but it helps considerably. That's taken, I think, £1.2 million of government money to help sort of to get to this point. In terms of the Nicholson building, it doesn't sound like it's in a pretty place in terms of the building itself. There's been work done on the roof, and you said the floors aren't in a good place and everything. And it's really perhaps one for Ian, because Ian's looked at the figures on this. How much will it cost to, it's a simple question for me, and I'll come back with another question perhaps a bit later, but the first question is, how much will it cost to actually get this building back into use? And I like the idea of the weddings, but historically these things cost £4 or £5 million. The interest is probably £500,000 or something like that, and we're getting 50 quid a wedding. And it sounds really good, but I'm not convinced. If this was a Dragon's Den, my red button would have gone by now straight away. But I would like to hear some more detail and where the money's coming from, really.
Yes, Mark, just to confirm, the building's actually in use. We still run our town library there, the art gallery is still open, the museum is. It's the art rooms, which are on the lower ground floor, that aren't in use at the moment. So we actively use the building. The Levelling Up Fund money is from a bid that Staffordshire Moorlands will put into government, and it will cover the costs of the current maintenance backlog for the Nicholson, but also it will provide us with the opportunity to really give the building an uplift. So in terms of a county contribution, as partners, and that's ourselves and the District Council, there is an encouragement from government to match funds around 10% of the entire bid, but we can do that with in kind. So it isn't a cash element from the county. It will be in terms of officer time to support the project as it moves forward. So it is genuinely quite a good news story. In terms of the long-term future of the Nicholson, it makes sure that we've got a building that we can actually grow footfall into the town. It is an underused building at the moment, and I think part of the revamp is very much to actually have a property that's in the best state it could possibly be, and it's not in an appalling state. But also to bring in a curator to actually make sure that we maximise its use. And that's why we're looking at events, we're looking at museum status for the museum itself, because it doesn't currently have status. So it's about attracting additional investment and actually additional footfall. As you'll probably be aware, one of the key income generation opportunities in Staffordshire Moorlands relates to tourism, and we're really keen to make sure that the Nicholson Institute is really well used as that cultural offer for the local community, but also as a real tourist destination. And we can see genuinely a real opportunity for it being a destination wedding venue. It is actually a really beautiful building inside, and it provides a real opportunity to attract both additional museum and gallery what am I trying to say, sorry, collections into the Nicholson Institute. So it gives us a real opportunity to really promote it as a tourist offer locally. So I think it's probably less of an issue in terms of the county's contribution to this. It is about match funding in kind, but that's only as required through the Luft bid, and that's encouragement rather than an insistence for that funding. So I hope I cover some of those. I'm sure Ian will happily come in on the property maintenance side.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was a lot clearer for me. I didn't pick some of that up from the report, so yeah, a lot happier with that. And I'd still like to know this bid's down to the SMDC for to apply to the Levelling Up Fund. So really, I suppose one of the big inputs from county will be helping them with that bid. We actually, with the Shire Hall, used the Prince's Trust as well, which were quite excellent, just as an aside. Thank you.
The District Council have got consultants in at the moment working up the bid, but we have been actively involved. In terms of the maintenance backlog, it's been put forward at 1.3 million, so there's a lot of additional money there for the Nicholson in terms of really revamping the site. Stafford Moorlands District Council are also priority one for the Levelling Up Fund, so there is a really good chance that the bid would be successful.
The entrance is very, very imposing, isn't it? It's up a balustrade of steps, like similar to here. And for weddings, you know, I think it would be a big source of income. And also the library is also accessible from the district building. So they can come into the district building and go straight through to the library, which is quite well used, considering its leak, you know. I have difficulty with leak.
So as Gail said, out the 4.3 million, roughly 1.3 million is identified maintenance type money. There are other bits to make it more attractive. Some parts of the building are underused at the moment and haven't had the same amount of kind of internal maintenance. But it is very similar to Shire Hall. The differences are the end use, where Shire Hall is about economic, an economic and business support offering, whereas in Leek it's kind of cultural. The other difference is, of course, that the Nicholson Institute was gifted under trust, so it has restrictions over it that the borough, the Shire Hall doesn't have, and hence why there is a request to apply to the Charity Commission. And I think that should be seen in a positive light. The world changes since the building was gifted, the needs of the local community change according to that, and then it's taking advantage of government funding to create that in accordance with what the locality needs. And as you say, it's a district council bid, so all that seems quite positive, very similar to Shire Hall. Therefore, you know, another good news story for the county and, you know, its districts in terms of getting the investment to keep up and you know, bring into good use these buildings that aren't quite as effectively used as potentially they could be. So all quite positive. We do need to take the opportunity to regularise the occupation of the building. So it's on an old kind of joint user agreement, and that needs to be refreshed as part of that process. And that's just important for the trustees, the county council trustee role, to make sure that is you know, that's kind of properly laid out for the future. So it's a good time to refresh that. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Just a couple of comments from my point of view. I think that if what we're doing is attracting Staffordshire Moorlands weddings to Staffordshire Moorland location, that's obviously got to be a good thing. And if it's moving from one building to another building, which is much more attractive, I think that's a good move and a way to go forward. So I'm very supportive of that. We obviously need to do things from the Charity Commission's point of view, and so I think that's a good thing as well. But our recommendations are to consider and comment on the proposed investment and approve an application to the Charity Commission, which I think that we have done. Are we all in agreement with that? Yeah, that's agreed. You may stay and revel in the comments that we have on our next item, or leave us if you wish.
Thank you, Chair. I'll make my exit.
Next item is the Tamworth Youth Centre Fund. Ian, I think we're with you.
Thank you, Chairman. So this item, or this property, was last discussed virtually a year to the date, 15th of June last year, where the committee resolved to apply to the Charity Commission to change the charity arrangements to allow sale of the building, to liquidate the assets for those to be invested for the purposes of the charity. So that was agreed. The application was made to the Charity Commission, and they asked for a consultation, a local consultation on the three options that the committee had discussed. So I'll just remind you of what those were. So option one was the status quo, where the activities largely don't that are undertaken in the building don't contribute towards the charity objectives. The second option was to sell the property, as I've just described, invest the income and use it for charitable purposes. And the third one was actually to find an organisation who would take over the existing building and kind of manage it, but with activities that fulfil the objectives of the trust. So we did the consultation, and that is summarised in Appendix C. And in effect, we got 5 responses. There were 6, but one of them really wasn't in line with what the consultation asked. So there were 2 supporting maintaining the status quo. One was Tamworth Grassroots Basketball Academy. So they did want to do that, but actually, in terms of sustainability, there really wasn't any sustainability. They weren't able to take over the building. A Tamworth resident also supported option 1, but without any idea how it would work. And actually their comments are more akin to option 3, which is find somebody else to look over it. In terms of option 2, that's supported by Heart of Tamworth Community project, which does include some local councillors. So it's a bit more of a community organisation rather than single organisation or single residence representation, so they support the option. A Tamworth resident also did support option 2, and then option 3, which is sourcing an alternative tenant. It was a Tamworth resident suggesting that option 3, sourcing somebody else to look after it, being the only viable answer. We did ask in the consultation that anybody suggesting option 3 actually gave some indication of how, that being their preferred option, that would go about being delivered. So in other words, did they actually have a mechanism for that? Because when we discussed this at the committee last time, we were saying that, you know, we couldn't find anybody actually to run it and sustain the building. So just to remind members, for option 3 to be viable, you need an organisation, not necessarily paying rent, but covering the running costs and the maintenance cost of the building. Since it ceased to be run by the County Council's youth centre, nobody has been able to do that, and the property has just deteriorated. It is a significant financial challenge for community organisations to be able to pay for the upkeep of property, even when it is facilitated rent-free. And the County Council sees that in properties that don't come under the remit of this committee, general corporate properties. We see that challenge quite a lot. So that's the summary of the consultations. So a bit of a mixed bag, but generally in support of the committee's decision. So we are asking now to go back to the Charity Commission, report the outcome of the consultation, and ask them to ratify the decision that the committee made 12 months ago. So that's one part. The other part then is, assuming that is successful, which we believe it is in line with the consultation responses and the committee's previous decision, is then getting on to the disposal. So the disposal of the property, what we discussed previously, was a joint market sale with County Council corporate properties in that area. So if you refer to the plan at Appendix A, the red line is the youth centre that is subject to the trust. Underneath it, in Appendix B, the red line is increased to include the property which is the former Magistrates' Court in Tamworth, which is owned by the County Council. Outlined in blue is the former police station, which has subsequently been sold privately. And to the left, edged green, is some Borough Council, Tamworth Borough Council land. Members might be aware that Tamworth Borough Council have long held aspirations to regenerate this area, the Gungate Regeneration Scheme. They are submitting a levelling up fund bid around the regeneration. So in their southern area there on Appendix B, which is in green, that's a car park. A long time ago it used to be an indoor market, long since demolished, turned into a car park. It was owned by a developer, I believe, Henry Boot Developments. They made no progress with it. The economic climate wasn't right. So Tamworth Borough acquired it back off of Henry Boot and have been working on a development in that area. So this is a comprehensive development of that area that Tamworth Borough Council are putting forward, and they wish to acquire the interest that the County Council's got. So corporately, the County Council has agreed in principle to sell the former Magistrates' Court and the top right property in the red area there, which is 56 Albert Road, to Tamworth Borough Council based on a valuation exercise, which is in accordance with the Rules and Regulations section 123 of the Local Government Act to be able to do that. But the charity status of the youth centre is slightly different. So we need to, in any disposal, follow the charity disposal rules. If you want some more information, Vanessa can advise you on that. But essentially, they refer to the best price that a charity can get in terms of disposal of its assets. That process requires independent advice from a chartered surveyor. So we would get external independent advice for this committee. Normally it requires a market sale, but in this instance we did have some joint valuations previously with Tamworth Borough Council, and they identified a marriage value, so an increased value because of the properties put together. So what we are recommending to the committee here is that that our internal view is that is the best option, is for the committee to dispose of its assets to the Borough Council based on a full market valuation, but to include the marriage value. The decision of the County Council means that marriage value isn't available if you decide to go out to market. Now, so that's the internal view of officers. As I say, what we propose to do is to get external advice, which will be provided in accordance with the Charity Commission's rules around disposal of assets. If we are correct in our view, they will recommend that you do that, take the valuation and take the marriage value in a disposal to Tamworth Borough Council. So that will be all in accordance with the Charity Commission's rules. If the independent valuation advice isn't that, then of course we can't recommend that, and we'll come back to the committee with an alternative disposal route. So that's what we're asking for. Let's go to the Charity Commission with the outcome of the consultation, and let's do the disposal process through the independent advice of a registered valuer. And if it's what we think it is, proceed with the disposal for Tamworth Borough Council. If it isn't, then in actual fact, we'll be coming back. Well, we actually, it's for debate whether we come back, because then it would be an open market sale process. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to say it's probably best for me not to comment or vote on this one, as I'm a member and a chairman at Tamworth Borough Council. Yeah.
Well,
Well, I think it's obvious from what I said, but if I need to say, therefore I'm declaring an interest, then I can say it, but I think it was obvious from what I said, I think.
Okay, well, we've got three recommendations, well, three items on the recommendations. One is to approve the Charity Commission being informed. The second is to approve the sale of the property to Tamworth Borough Council. And item C, delegate approval to the Assistant Director of Commercial and Assets to agree as sale and fund management terms. I'm comfortable that sufficient provision has been made within the document that we've had presented to us that we will track the increased value of the land if we should see an increased value in the land. Of course, land can move up and down, but rarely moves down. I wouldn't want to see that we agreed a sale and then found that there was a massive profit that was made elsewhere at the expense of the county, and I gather that that's been properly covered in what we're looking at. So we're content with that, aren't we, Ian?
Yes, we are. I mean, it does go back similarly, really, to the kind of previous discussion, the previous item talking about the Nicholson Institute and Shire Hall, and actually other areas of the county. What we see is, and this site particularly with Henry Boot, is that actually commercial developments don't succeed, and it does need government intervention. So the Tamworth Borough Council going away with some kind of profit actually isn't that. What's actually happening is the government are funding the viability gap in terms of these developments that are part of regeneration to improve the local economy. So that's what we're seeing. In terms of an overall development, it's probably going to be quite difficult to kind of isolate a specific land value. However, there are mechanisms within the contract and sales that we can make sure that they're not allowed to take ownership of the land and then not deliver the scheme and then potentially hold on to it for 10 years when there's a different market position and therefore make money out of it. So yes, in terms of we can sell it on the basis that the development in accordance with their sort of regeneration project does proceed, and it isn't a way just for some other party, whether that be Tamworth Borough Council or any other, to benefit kind of to the disadvantage of the trust.
Thank you. Mark.
Thank you, Chair. Gun gates, I mean, we've been talking about this since 2009, to my knowledge, and I'm sure it was talked about before. I thought we'd progress with it, but obviously with the Henry Boot thing, it's not progressed. In terms of the development and the marriage proposals, we're talking about marriage. There's a lot of marriage talk this meeting, but there you go. In terms of the proposal for Gungate, totally agree, and it's really what's needed. But we are here as trustees and representatives of the trust. Two questions really, and I think it's one of them is definitely with Vanessa. The first one is, within the proposals we have, the proceeds will be used appropriately. Have we any idea what that is? That's the first question. And then the second one really of Vanessa is, in terms of as being a trust and an independent advisor or QS, whatever you want to call it, how's that person or company actually procured, and can we be assured as trustees that we will get the best price for this piece of ground?
Sorry, taking your second point first. It will be a registered valuer, so the requirements of the charity committee are it's a member of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, They have to be appropriately qualified, registered valuer. They are in effect signing off to that. They have professional indemnity assurance. There's lots of rules and regulations about that. They are asked to provide a market valuation from a willing seller to a willing buyer with no tie-up. So they aren't asked to say, in the context of Tamworth Borough Council wanting to do this regeneration project, what is the value? They are asked to provide what is the market value. Taking the chairman's point about land value going up and down, this is why we are specifically talking about the marriage, or the modern phrase is synergistic value. So in other words, selling it all together makes a bigger development. But again, that is considered in the context of any kind of development and not just what Tamworth Borough Council are trying to produce. The arguments against a market sale, for a market sale are, but actually a valuation can give you a surprise, and somebody can come in with a specific bid, and there is that argument, and that's why you need the independent advice to say, in their judgment, that marriage value will beat the market sale. But you can't tell that, and that's why we are saying in the Charity Commission do require that independent advice. And if the valuer won't sign to say that, and it's not because we're asking them to say that, they have all of their reputation, the PI insurance, the rules and regulations behind them to say that they must be giving that independent advice to this committee to say that's the right thing to do. And sorry, I've forgotten your first point.
Sorry, you haven't actually. You've explained what an independent valuer does, which is great, and gives us more reassurance as a committee. You haven't said how that person will be chosen.
Right, sorry. So what we were planning to do, because we've had a joint valuation with Tamworth before, we were proposing to use the same valuer, but make it clear to them that they're acting specifically in the update in terms of the charity committee. So previously it was an initial valuation of our assets, the charity assets, and the corporate assets, the charity assets, and Tamworth Borough Council. But what we would be saying in this instance is it is specific independent advice for this this trust.
Chair, can I, and apologies for what I'm going to say, but that doesn't lie well with me. I think if it is as a trust, we ultimately are talking about that one piece of trust area. To have a valuer that's already been in and working with the synergistic partners, I would question as to how independent that would be. And as a trust member, I'd feel a lot happier if we had a separate valuer in on it. Sorry to throw a spanner in the works there, but it doesn't feel right to me as a trust member that we have the same person doing all of them.
Okay, well, I mean, that's easy enough to arrange because we will just get a different valuer. And what we will do on that basis is, for this amount of money, we would follow the council's normal procurement rules. So we would get 3 qualified organisations, ask them to give us a price and make sure they got the appropriate qualifications. So we can have a completely fresh set of eyes on it. It'll just cost a little bit more money that will come out of the sale, that's all.
Chair, can I put that proposal forward to the committee to agree or disagree on?
Yeah, sort of my sort of officer position is I'm perfectly comfortable that a valuer will do it completely in accordance with the rules and regulations and won't be swayed, because it just isn't worth. There is no advantage to them in terms of doing that. But equally, if you want to make that sort of air gap in the process, if you like, it presents no issues to us. it'll just cost slightly more money, that's all.
I think if a valuer was not comfortable that they could provide independent advice, they've got a moral duty to declare a conflict of interest. So, I mean, it could be that we approach that valuation individual and they say they're not willing to provide it because of the prior involvement. But it is, as Ian says, it's just as easy to go out to procure and get 3 new quotes.
On that basis, Chairman, could I propose that we ask that a separate valuation under what's just been discussed is done?
Can we just, colleagues, are you comfortable with that, or do you wish to stay with the original recommendation?
I'm quite comfortable with it, but yes.
We're going to... You're happy, Ian? Okay, we agree that.
Perfectly, yeah.
Okay, any other comments?
The second question, or the first part of the question, which was answered, not answered, is do we know what's going to happen to the funds afterwards, or have we any idea?
Yeah, apologies. I should have reminded you that 12 months ago, and it's a long time, so it's unreasonable for you to have remembered that. When we put this proposal forward last time, what we said was that the income generated from the sale would be invested the same way other trust capital is invested, and then the income would be spent by a process where local youth charities bid for some money annually, and that process would be managed by skivvies. They would take a small management fee for doing that, but they would manage that process. And then similarly, as you've heard from the Staffordshire Partnership, they would come back every 12 months and say, this is the activities that have been undertaken and these the benefits have been delivered from that money. And as I say, the capital will be invested in the same way that other trusts invest their capital, and you just spend the income. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Tom, are you... Oh, no, you declared an interest. Okay, that's approved. Thank you. Can we now move on to... I don't know, what are we moving on to? Let's go back and find the agenda. It's there somewhere. Can someone help me? Have we anything else left on the agenda? I'm not sure whether there's anything left to do.
We do, Chair. We have an update on the broom in Tamworth.
Well, while I'm finding the item on the agenda, can we carry on and do it?
Yes, Chairman. So there's a next to the broom at Dost Hill, there's a school that's being expanded, and the contractor who's doing the works wanted access across the broom. They wanted to put a haul road in. So that proceeded. They paid the initial licence fee, but then there was monthly costs on top of that. Unfortunately, the contractor's gone into liquidation. So the works have halted. A new contractor hasn't been appointed yet, but will be at some point in the future. The briefing note actually suggests that the trust might not receive the remainder of the income for the licence. What I would be suggesting is the new contractor will need a new licence, and so will pay for a new licence. Otherwise, the new contractor won't have the rights over the land. I need to just check out the detail of the licence, but I'm fairly sure it's in the name of the contractor, so nobody else has got those rights. I'll check those out, but subject to that being correct, we will, as long as the committee is content with that, we will insist that the new contractor has a new licence, and we carry on as before.
Had any of the work started on the school? Or
I'm afraid I don't know. Certainly the Hall Road, so there was land protection, sort of matting and stone put down, has been put down, I believe. But how much work on the school has taken place, I'm afraid I don't know, sorry.
Do we have any obligations, or does anyone have any obligations if work's been done to the liquidators for investment that's put into the Hall Road, or does that just get lost in the pot?
Well, I'm assuming there's a loss, so this is going to be paying out to creditors. I assume that the liquidator's view of this particular licence is it's a long way down the route, and you know, whilst there might be an outstanding monthly payment or two, we'll probably come a long way down the route. The liquidator has been advised that they do owe, that you know that this money is owed to the trust, but I just assume there won't be anything. If there's, you know, whatever proportion in the pound of debt that the trust comes under this licence, there might be some money coming through that route, but certainly there's never ever going to be any liability for this trust to the organisation. It is simply an unpaid bill from an organisation that's gone into liquidation, and so the purpose of the report really is to say that this particular trust isn't receiving any income as we had previously hoped. So I suppose I ought to remind the committee that this trust has no income. All it has is the land. It has no other assets, just the land itself. And that, I mean, there would be no purpose in liquidating that or selling it to anybody else. And that's the challenge that this has, really. So it was quite opportunistic, really, that somebody needed to use the land and was prepared to pay a licence fee, because that was generating a little bit of money to sit in a pot for any obligations that the land might have. Thank you.
Okay. Any comments? No. Thank you very much. That we haven't got any items in part 2, so I don't need to exclude the press or the public. So thank you all very much for being here. It's been a very useful meeting, and thank you very much indeed for your contribution. Thank you.